Well, I want to bring in Jordan's Foreign Minister, Ayman He joins me now from the capital of Oman. Foreign Minister, who is to blame for the violence that we have seen in Jerusalem lately, particularly around the Al-Aqsa Mosque?
Well, good evening, Bيكي. Basically, what Jordan has wanted all through is to make sure that the legal and historical status quo at the Haram is respected, so that we maintain the calm that everybody worked so hard to achieve, avoid violence, and then move towards a political horizon that will bring about an end to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, so that everybody gets the peace that is a right for all. What happened in Al-Aqsa is, of course, a reflection of the ongoing tension that has been escalating for weeks before the events of last Friday. Even before the beginning of the month of Ramadan, you saw the intense activities nicely led, and the effort Jordan made to make sure that we mitigate against a deja vu, basically, in terms of what happened last year.
You're not answering the question. The question is, who is to blame for this violence, sir, with respect?
Who's to blame initially? The fact that there's no political horizon, the fact that the status quo is not being respected, the fact that we've seen a lot of escalatory measures by settlers and by extremists, and the fact that Israeli forces entered into, stormed into the Aqsa last week. We're not looking for here in terms of what's happening now. What we want to do is what we've always done is how do we look forward? How do we move beyond the current crisis, contain the tension, ensure respect for the status quo at the Haram, and move forward, all of us, towards maintaining the calm and achieving peace.
Israel has accused Jordan of encouraging Palestinians, who it says are committing acts of violence in Jerusalem over the past couple of days. Your response?
I haven't heard an Israeli official make this accusation. We've heard a lot of reports. Basically, what I would say is that Jordan's record, Jordan's history is clear, that we always encourage dialogue, always encourage negotiations, always encouraged peaceful means of settling the conflict. At the same time, we've always been very clear to the Israelis and to everybody that the status quo of the Masjid al-Aqsa, of the Haram, must be respected, that violating that status quo is going to lead to an explosion, given the sacredness of the Haram and the overall tension, which is pretty much the outcome of failure to move forward towards political horizon. So I would say that we are very clear as Jordan. We've always worked for peace. We're going to continue to work for peace. And what we've encouraged the Israelis to do is to respect the status quo. And all our conversation with the Palestinians was geared to working together to maintain the peace and make sure that we maintain the calm.
My colleague Christian Amanpour spoke exclusively with Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett earlier. I just want you to have a listen to this exchange.
When the world sees, and when Palestinians see, and when your region sees Israeli soldiers inside that mosque, it creates a lot of tension, a lot of unease. Why do you allow Israeli soldiers to go into that mosque?
Yeah, well, Christia, there you go again, starting the story in the middle. But the actual fact is that last Friday, at about 5 a.m. in the morning, roughly 300 Palestinian rioters entered Temple Mount Mosque with explosives, with stones. They began desecrating their own mosque, burning, throwing stones, and preventing about 80,000 decent Muslims from going to pray. My responsibility as Prime Minister of Israel is to provide freedom of prayer to everyone in Jerusalem, including Muslims, which is why I had to send in policemen to remove the rioters, and it worked. Indeed, 80,000 Muslims went on later to pray peacefully. So, you know, when faced with violence, you have to act tough.
Foreign Minister, I just want to push you a little further on what we were just discussing before in response to what you've just heard there. Jordan isn't being accused of encouraging Palestinians to commit acts of violence by any Israeli lawmaker. But it's the response of the Jordanians to what is going on that is seen as encouraging activity by Palestinians within the compound. Does that make sense? I just want to get your response to that specifically.
No, it doesn't. It does not make sense, Becky. What Jordan did is took the same stand it has taken historically over decades. It took last year, it took this year, that the status quo, the historical legal status quo of the Haram must be respected, that freedom to prayer for Muslims in the Haram must be respected, limitations on access to the Haram must be lifted. That is what Jordan did, and that's and what also Jordan did is urged everybody to make sure that we mitigate against any eruption of violence. The beginning of the story, Becky, is that we have a conflict that continues to evade a solution. We've worked for the last few months, years before even, to try and create a political horizon that will address the issue that there is an occupation, that there is no horizon to solving it, that we must move towards ending all tension and move towards the two-state solution.